Today we're going to be talking about recognizing health problems in persons with dementia. To begin with, most older individuals have a wide range of health problems, from difficulties with vision, through blood pressure problems, heart disease, sugar diabetes, etc. At 2 o'clock in the morning, you may not have a physician or a nurse available to determine whether or not your resident is having a true medical emergency. Consequently, today's program focuses on, first of all, helping you to decide whether or not your resident is having an emergency. Secondly, how to call for help to deal with that emergency. And then thirdly, how to organize an effective transfer of that individual from your facility to a hospital. To begin with, let's talk about some basic facts for health care in the older individual.
Older people often have medical problems. They need to be able to report their symptoms to their doctor in order to receive the right treatment. They may have medications they need to remember to take. Residents with dementia have trouble remembering symptoms, remembering how to follow their doctor's instructions, and remembering to take their medicines. Severely demented residents may not even be able to explain pain that they're experiencing. Sometimes when residents have trouble telling you about an illness, they develop behavioral problems out of pain and frustration. Some signs of illness include pacing, shouting, fighting, wandering, refusing to eat, and excessive sleepiness. It is not uncommon for residents with dental problems to stop eating because it hurts too much. Medical care for demented residents is actually very similar to medical care for small children. Small children might become grumpy, stop eating, or fuss when they're sick. The same is true for demented residents. Like a watchful parent, you need to be aware of changes in a resident's behavior and report any changes to your nurse or supervisor. Sometimes behavioral problems are the only way to know that residents aren't feeling well.
Did you know? Residents with dementia often have other medical problems too. Residents with dementia are actually less likely to complain of health problems than other people are. Some demented residents can suffer serious injuries, even broken bones, without complaining about much pain. Agitation, wandering, pacing, and refusal to eat may actually be signs of medical problems.
You can help your residents stay healthy by understanding their health problems. Many older residents lose their vision. Some common causes of vision loss include cataracts, glaucoma, diabetes, and macular degeneration. Eyeglasses can often help to improve vision problems. Hearing loss is another common problem. Many demented residents already have trouble understanding spoken word. Hearing loss makes it more difficult for residents to understand you. Hearing loss can be improved with hearing aids, and speaking to residents in a quiet environment will also make it easier for them to understand you. Background noise can be very distracting. Another health problem that you may encounter is chest pain. If you notice that a resident is experiencing chest pain, ask yourself the following 3 questions. Has the pain lasted a long time? If the pain is persistent and lasts longer than 15 minutes, it may be a serious problem. Does the resident look different than usual, gray, sweaty, or cool? These may also be signs of a serious problem. Is the pain different from other chest pain? Some residents experience chest pain regularly from eating or digestion problems. But if the pain feels different or if the pain is worse, that may be a sign of a serious problem. If you answer yes to any of the 3 questions, contact your supervisor immediately. The resident may have a serious medical problem. If your supervisor is unavailable, call someone in charge or transfer the resident to the local emergency room. It is always better to be safe than sorry about demented residents' medical problems. Just remember, when in doubt, ship them out. Shortness of breath is another health problem that you may come across. If you discover that a resident is experiencing shortness of breath, ask yourself the following 3 questions. Has the shortness of breath lasted a long time? If the shortness of breath is persistent and lasts longer than 15 minutes, it may be a serious problem. Is the shortness of breath different from previous episodes? Some residents experience shortness of breath regularly. But if the shortness of breath is worse than usual, it may be a sign of a serious problem. Has the resident ever had a serious problem with shortness of breath in the past? Maybe one that required hospitalization. If so, the resident may need medical attention again. If you answer yes to any of the 3 questions, contact your supervisor immediately. The resident may have a serious medical problem. If your supervisor is not available, call someone in charge or transfer the resident to the local emergency room. Remember, when in doubt, ship them out. You may find a resident having trouble standing or walking. If a resident is unable to stand or walk, ask yourself the following 4 questions. Is this a new problem? If the resident has never had problems standing or walking before, a new problem may be a sign of a serious injury, like a broken bone. Is any other part of the body weak? If other parts of the body seem weak or look deformed, it may be a sign of additional injuries. Did something happen that caused the resident to have trouble standing or walking? Residents who fall or bump into things may seriously injure themselves. Is the resident in pain? Residents who are in pain may have suffered a serious injury. If you answer yes to any of the 4 questions, contact your supervisor immediately. The resident may have suffered a serious injury. If your supervisor is not available, transfer the resident to the local emergency room. Remember, when in doubt, ship them out. Loss of consciousness is always a serious problem. If a resident loses consciousness, call for an ambulance immediately. Also call the resident's family to let them know what is happening. If unconscious residents begin to throw up, they may be in danger of choking on their own vomit. Unconscious residents should not be left lying on their backs while you wait for the ambulance. Roll them onto their sides to protect them from choking. Demented residents have trouble remembering whether they took their medications or other treatments, like inhalers. Some residents are no longer able to give themselves the injections or eye drops they need. Residents need your help to keep their health problems under control. Many medications help to prevent immediate health problems, including breathing medicines, heart pills, blood pressure pills, diabetes medicines, seizure medicines, and glaucoma drops. If residents forget to or refuse to take these medications, they could get sick right away. If you notice that a resident has not taken some important medication, contact your nurse or supervisor immediately. You may be able to prevent a serious problem. Remember, residents are often confused about whether or not they took their medication. Just because residents say that they took their medicine does not mean that they did. Watch residents to make sure that they take their medication, and tell your supervisor if you suspect residents are not taking their medication. Mr. Jones has dementia, and he regularly experiences chest pains from esophagitis or inflammation of the food pipe.
My chest really hurts.
Mr. Jones.
Sam is an
are you all right?
attentive
You look
worker.
like you don't feel well.
Oh, I feel terrible, Sam. My chest really hurts.
Has it been hurting long, or did it just start hurting?
It started about the time that TV program came on.
It's been about 20 minutes. That's quite a while, Mr. Jones. Now, I know you've had chest pain before. Is this the same kind of chest pain?
No, this is different. I know what it feels like when my food pipe is inflamed. No, this is different. It's in my neck and down my left arm. Oh, Sam, I think I'm dying.
No,
Help me.
don't you worry, Mr. Jones. I'll go get your nurse, and we'll see what we need to do to make you feel better. And now, I'll be right back. Mr. Jones, it's probably nothing, but we're going to send you to the hospital. My nurse is concerned that it might be more serious than your inflamed food pipe.
It turned out that Mr. Jones was having a heart attack. Sam's careful attention saved Mr. Jones' life. Sam asked all the right questions and knew to call for help before it was too late. Miss Shelby has Alzheimer's disease. She also has lung disease and often has trouble breathing. Rhonda is an attentive worker.
Miss Shelby, you seem a little more short of breath than usual tonight.
I am, Rhonda. It started this morning. I just can't seem to catch my breath. I don't know what to do.
Well, I know you have trouble breathing sometimes, and I know this can be hard for you, but is it different than usual?
Yes, Rhonda. This is really bad. The last time it was this bad, I ended up in the hospital for a week.
Well, don't worry, Miss Shelby. I'm going to go talk to your nurse. We're going to see what we can do to help you feel better, and I'll be right back.
Thank you, darling.
Miss Shelby was sent to the hospital that evening, where she received several breathing treatments that made it easier for her to breathe and helped her feel much better. She returned that night. Rhonda's careful attention prevented a small breathing problem from turning into a major medical emergency. Rhonda asked all the right questions and knew to call for help before it was too late. Sam and Rhonda are attentive workers.
Mr. Stevens' family asked us to keep a close eye on him. He hasn't been feeling well recently, and they were worried about him when they came by to see him today.
Well, how long ago did they leave, Rhonda?
Well, it's 11 now, so they left about 5 hours ago.
Well, maybe we should check on him to make sure he's all right. I hate to wake him up, though.
Me too, Sam, but we better make sure he's okay. And his family did ask us to keep a close eye on him.
Mr. Stevens has Alzheimer's disease and he is diabetic. He has had bad reactions to his insulin medication in the past. Over the last few days, Mr. Stevens has had the flu and he hasn't been feeling very well.
Mr. Stevens, it's Rhonda. I'm just checking to make sure you're okay. Mr. Stevens? Mr. Stevens, Sam, I can't wake him up.
He's breathing very heavily and he looks like he's sweating.
There's something wrong with Mr. Stevens.
You're right, he usually wakes up very easily.
We need to get him some help, Sam.
You stay here with Mr. Stevens. I'll go call the ambulance. He needs to go to the hospital.
Okay, but don't forget to call his family. They'll want to know what's going on with him.
You're right.
And before you go, could you help me roll him over onto his side in case he throws up? We don't want him to choke on his own vomit.
Good idea, Rhonda. I'll go get help now. You stay here and keep an eye on Mr. Stevens.
It turned out that Mr. Stevens was having an insulin reaction when he went to sleep. Since he has Alzheimer's disease, he forgot to tell the staff about his problem and slipped into a coma. When Sam and Rhonda found him, they didn't know what was wrong, but they did know that any time a resident loses consciousness, you should call for an ambulance immediately. When Mr. Stevens got to the emergency room, the doctors helped him regain consciousness and no damage was done. Sam and Rhonda avoided a serious medical catastrophe by calling for an ambulance right away.
Mr. Fine has Alzheimer's disease. He is usually very calm and polite. Today he is shouting and will not get out of his chair. He cries out when you attempt to move him to change his wet pants. What can you do to help Mr. Fine?
Pull him out of his chair.
Ask your supervisor to come find out what's wrong. Call an ambulance immediately.
Call his family to come get him.
Ms. Harper has moderately severe dementia. She has a serious lung disease and she must take breathing treatments 4 times every day. Saturday morning she is grumpy and has not taken several of her treatments. Now she appears short of breath. What can you do to help Ms. Harper?
Tell your supervisor on Monday.
Tell her to stop acting like a child. Call your supervisor immediately to find out what to do next.
Miss Harper is grumpy and mean.
Mr. Novak has moderate dementia. He is usually pleasant and talkative, even though it's hard to understand what he's saying sometimes. Another staff member tells you that she can't wake him up. He feels damp and cool, and his breathing is slow. What can you do to help Mr. Novak?
This is a medical emergency. Call the paramedics right away.
Check back in an hour or two. Wait until you can talk to your supervisor in the morning.
Give Mr. Novak an extra blanket.
Ms. Barnes has mild dementia. She is usually very pleasant, but today she is pacing and screaming. You noticed that she did not eat her breakfast. However, she did receive her morning dose of insulin. When you approach her, she has a wild look in her eyes. What can you do to help Ms. Barnes?
Check to see if she's calmed down after a few hours.
Put her in restraints. Call the paramedics to come take her away.
Offer some food. Call your supervisor for help.
Mr. Carroll has dementia. One Saturday morning, he becomes loud and agitated. Most days he likes to wander around, but now he won't leave his chair. He begins to vomit. You try calling your supervisor, but after 2 hours, you still can't reach her. Mr. Carroll has vomited 2 more times, and he seems to have belly pain. What can you do to help him?
Wait until you see your supervisor on Monday.
Take him to the emergency room. Don't give him any more food.
Give Mr. Carroll an antacid and some water.